it's Marissa with Grow in the Flow, and I'm popping in here today to talk about the full moon in Libra that's coming up this Sunday, March 28th. And this full moon is going to be a big one because it's all about relationships, and relationships as far as healing and bringing them into balance. And it's in reference to relationships of all types. Relationship with self, relationship with others, such as romantic, family, friendships, professional. It can even be in relation to our relationships with things such as abundance, career, wellness, and everything in between. So there's a large area to look at and to really maximize this full moon energy to bring that healing and balance into these relationships. And so I'm going to be offering this reading through Tuesday, March 30th, since those full moon energies will continue for 24 to 48 hours. And we're going to take a look at today the energies and vibrations of the number 6, because the number 6 relates to our relationships and their dynamics. So it's about balance and peace, harmony and equilibrium, reciprocity, exchange, giving and receiving. And so within the tarot, of course, we see the number 6 throughout. We have the major arcana card 6, the lovers, and then we have a 6 card for each of the 4 suits. So I've pulled them out. I have the 6's. I'm going to put the camera down and we're going to kind of explore the energies that come up throughout the tarot and how they relate to our relationships. So as I'm saying this, any relationships that are coming to mind, I want you to hold them in the front of your mind, because often that is indicative that is a relationship that's wanting to come up to be seen for healing, forgiveness, and to be brought into balance. So even today, as we just look at these 5 cards, you may find that things will resonate with you as they relate to that relationship. And it's kind of like a mini reading in itself, because it will help to glean some perspective and get some guidance on, what is coming up to be seen with that relationship for you. So again, the information on the special is below. If you're interested, please reach out. It's a very comprehensive reading that's going to be looking at 6 different cards from the full 78 card deck of the tarot. It's just the overarching theme are the 6's that we're going to discuss today and how they relate to your relationships. So any specific questions or concerns you have regarding a relationship, we can take that deep dive and take a look using this spread. So thank you so much for joining me. Let's go take a look. Okay, so we're here with the 6's of the traditional tarot. So we're going to be basing this on the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck. There are a lot of other artist depictions out there of different decks that may vary, but the overarching theme of each card is typically consistent. What we're looking at here is the way that the 6's are depicted in the traditional tarot deck. So the first thing we see is that all of the 6's feature more than one person. So it's showing us an element of a power dynamic or some type of imbalance that's being highlighted in each of these cards. So we have the Lover's card. This is the major arcana card number 6. And then we have the 6's from each suit: the 6 of Cups, 6 of Pentacles, 6 of Swords, and the 6 of Wands. And again, as an imbalance is shown in each of these cards, we see how this one clearly we have the Archangel Raphael at the top, and then we have male and female depicted here beneath. So there's that dynamic demonstrated there. In the 6 of Cups, we're seeing children where one is presumably older and taller, the other one is presumably younger and shorter. Then we have the 6 of Pentacles, where we're seeing the energy of the rich and the poor, the haves and the have-nots coming up. The 6 of Swords is showing us one individual who's standing and guiding the passengers who are sitting beneath them on the boat. And then we have the 6 of Wands, where we have one person who's riding atop a white horse, and then we have the crowd. So I'm going to be pulling each of these in so you can see them up close, but that is the overarching energy of each of these cards where we're seeing that power dynamic. And with each of these cards, we are really invited to think about, in what way do we embody each of the people depicted? So there is something to recognize in ourselves looking at each of the characters on these cards. So kind of keeping that in mind as we go, we're looking at that flow of giving and receiving, the balance of the number 6. So let's start here with our beautiful Lovers card. And typically this card is assumed to be about lovers, romantic relationships, but that's really not all that it's about. The Lovers card always denotes a choice. It's always pointing out a duality. It's obviously notable that they're both naked and that also there's a nod to the Garden of Eden here. And so that in itself is giving us sort of that nod to a choice within that Garden of Eden. So, looking at this card here, we see that it always tells us that relationships are a mirror of ourself. And again, all relationships, not just romantic, that the dynamics that exist between you and another in a relationship is always serving you to be a mirror, to reflect back to you, highlight aspects of yourself that are coming up to be seen, to be healed, etc. So, in some cases, our relationships, what's mirroring back to us is very similar to us. Somebody who has a lot of characteristics like we do. Then there are other relationship dynamics where the person is vastly different from us. And, perhaps what they're reflecting back to us complements us or provokes in us something that brings up an awareness of something within us. So that energy is there as well. In any case, it's teaching us deep spiritual lessons. So it's sort of like the idea that all of our relationships have the potential to be a spiritual kinship, an exchange, giving and receiving of that reflection back to us for our own soul growth and for healing. And of course, just the Garden of Eden is giving that nod to what is possible. The idea that we can be healed, whole, and vulnerable. Again, what's more vulnerable than standing there naked? This idea that it is possible, that can be brought into balance. The duality of the two can be balanced. And so one of the phrases that came up recently that I heard that I thought was really nice was this idea that, looking at all that is out of balance, that needs to be brought into to be harmonized, the idea that, yes, there is a better world possible. There is a better world out there, but it's within this world. So we're not looking to find this fantasy Garden of Eden out there. We can bring it here to our world through this process of healing and restoring balance in our relationships. And the way that highlights the flow of giving and receiving is, again, it's bringing in the awareness of the relationships we have here in our little worlds, in our microcosm, and how they are directly affecting and a part of our macrocosm of relationships. So, it's very symbolic here of obviously gender, of race, equality, just as much as it is about our personal relationships. So, of course, this depiction, very heteronormative, two white people, male, female. There's a lot of beautiful cards out there that depict more diversity. But even as they are here, it really calls to mind the opportunity for healing in all of those areas as well. And so that is helping us to see, again, bringing balance, that, we are the same. We're in the way that we're equal. We're not denying our differences. Clearly, there's differences between them. However, we embrace the knowledge that we are the same. We are one despite our differences. So that's a really beautiful overarching energy to have in the 6's as we then proceed through all of the suits. So the next one we're going to take a look at is the 6 of Cups. And this is really a beautiful card. Obviously, the children and the gentleness of this card really bring to mind a lot of sweetness and fondness here. And it does, of course, correlate with just that. It does tend to have to do with children, the past, being nostalgic, memories. It can have to do with storytelling. It can also have to do with past life and karma coming up. And again, it highlights that spiritual kinship, that relationship with self and others. And that can even be your relationship with something like a spiritual tool. How is your relationship with faith, your relationship with prayer, whatever that may be. It's an invitation to connect in this loving and gentle way. And so it also tends to highlight issues for the inner child and the heart opening. So, as we are invited to befriend and care for our inner child, we also have an opportunity to connect with our past self of any age. So it's not just the child from the past, but also, who we were in our young 20s versus, where we are now or wherever we've come from in the past, connecting with, healing, and befriending that aspect of ourself just as much as our future self. So the way that it ties into the flow of giving and receiving is giving us that opportunity to say, yeah, it's really easy when you think about it as an innocent child and their vulnerability, that it's easy to extend compassion and unconditional love. But then, it's not just the child, it's all aspects of self and others whom you have a relationship with, that you're invited to not only unconditionally love the inner child, but also the adult that they have become. To really give that perspective there to bring healing and balance as well. So then that takes us into the Six of Pentacles. And the Six of Pentacles is probably the most obvious card demonstrating giving and receiving. It literally has the scales here and this idea of giving and receiving. And so this card does, of course, talk about that balance of give and take, the exchange as it pertains to, relationships with other people, relationships with money, energy, resources. It's giving us an opportunity to really look at the investment that we're making in our relationships, and understanding where we are with that. How are we investing in our home, in our job, in our friendships? And the idea of bringing that balance and flow into the giving and receiving here highlights the fact that, it's never going to be 50-50. A lot of times the expectation is, we need to balance this out so that we're each giving 50-50. And that's just never going to be the case. There's a sliding scale, right? It's, this can give us insight into where an exchange is. We're checking in to see where are the scales right now. How is it with the giving and the receiving? And to really understand that, maybe there's some aspect that we're not seeing, something we're not recognizing about this exchange. It gives us an opportunity to acknowledge contributions that are being made by all parties. So sometimes the way that maybe you contribute to doing all the housework is different from the way a partner contributes to, the aspects that they're handling. And so we're acknowledging all of those contributions, and also having an opportunity to learn to receive with a grateful heart, one that's free of resentments. Sometimes it's a struggle when we feel that we're giving, but we have a really hard time receiving. So there's an opportunity for reflection and healing there as well. So then we move into the Six of Swords. And this has really come to be one of my favorite cards in the tarot. I love how it, of course, represents that there's a transition happening. There's a moving through emotions. Water is emotions, and we see here that it's a bit choppy. So it alludes to this idea of moving through emotions while holding on to hope that there are calmer waters ahead, that there is a light, a brightness in the horizon. And so it can also represent simply travel, movement, moving on to that brighter future. It can also indicate, some people don't notice that there's actually this third person here, this little stowaway. So we have this guide, this navigator, and then we have this person who's cloaked, and then this other small person here. So this can also represent like a third party, some type of counseling or guidance as well. And so that is like the person who is an overseer to guide through a rough time, a rough period of choppy waters, the emotions. And so that brought in this visualization I like to do of this idea of, the swords representing mental thoughts, things that we're carrying with us, that which of those things can we drop overboard and allow to gently float away? So giving us this opportunity to lighten the load and to be in flow when it comes to our relationships. And so the way that ties back into the flow of giving and receiving is, of course, we all take turns as the navigator of the boat. Sometimes we're the navigator, sometimes we're the passenger, sometimes we're the stowaway. We each have times when we are the one who's optimistically paddling forward and times when we're the one that's just clinging on to hope. That kind of brought to mind for me the song Lean on Me. This idea that we're going to give and receive of our energies when it's in need. So I thought that was really lovely as well. So then we have the Six of Wands, and we can see here that we have someone riding into town on their white horse with their laurel wreath, and we have the crowd who's enthusiastically cheering them on. So the Six of Wands represents being seen, being acknowledged, celebrated, having a platform, being lifted up, and free of that comparison and competition energy. So, here we see the crowd is the cheerleaders who are holding space for the one individual who's being celebrated. So that flow of giving, receiving shows up in, sometimes you're the star, sometimes you're the cheerleader, sometimes you're even the horse carrying all the weight, that you have your day in the sun and then you have your time as you're being in a supporting role. So again, as we look at each of these, we're thinking about in what ways these aspects show up in our lives and with the idea of bringing it all into balance. So that is a little peek at the energy of sixes throughout the tarot and how they relate to our relationship dynamics, bringing balance and healing. So those are the cards that were infused and sort of inspired the questions and the positions that are outlined in the special that I'm offering right now, the full moon spread, where we're going to take a look at some relationship that you may have questions or concerns with, that's going to take a look at, what aspect of myself is this relationship reflecting back to me? Cue the lovers. What past aspect of this relationship is coming up to be seen and released? Where do I feel out of alignment with this relationship? So balancing those scales and getting some perspective. What can I do to bring this relationship into alignment? So we're sort of, again, balancing out those scales, leveling out, finding those calmer, clearer waters within that relationship. What new energy is currently arising? So that's sort of like that bright horizon that's ahead that we're moving towards. And then how can I best align myself with this change? How can I set myself up for success? How can I set myself up to be celebrating this wonderful new aspect to this relationship or the healing of this relationship or however it may be showing up for me? So that's kind of how the sixes have all inspired the positions of this spread. Again, information is below. It's available until Tuesday, March 30th. So if you're interested, please reach out. Again, it's for relationships of all kinds. Any specific questions you have, etc., can all be factored in when we do your private reading. And then also you will have a special space set up with bringing in the healing energy sprays, crystals, and colors that infuse your reading with the highest vibrational energy. So what I had here on my altar today, just for those who'd like to know, these are all the beautiful sprays from Amanda Ellis, the Archangel Raphael spray for balance and harmony, of course, perfect. I also wanted to bring in, I was feeling the yellow and purple for this full moon. So I'm bringing in Archangel Jophiel for beauty and wisdom, and then Archangel Zadkiel for forgiveness and transmutation, which of course is so needed when it comes to looking into our relationships and looking to bring that healing, that forgiveness, that release to them, however they may be showing up for us. So I hope you've enjoyed this. It was kind of like a little tutorial, I guess. I've never done this before, so I wanted to share that with you. I'm also doing a blog post, the link is below, to kind of give the synopsis of all that we discussed here and to demonstrate close-ups of these pictures and so forth. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me. I'm always sending you nothing but the best. many, many full moon blessings, and talk to you soon. Thanks so much. Take care.